Well, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Andrew Carruthers, Education Director for Zambia. Welcome to another episode of Cabin Fever, which I know a lot of us are probably having right now because most of us have probably been in some type of quarantine or stay home, stay safe situation for quite a few weeks now. So probably a lot of us are getting some cabin fever. So this particular project that we're doing on Fridays was really about expanding how we support our community. And many of you might not know this about me, but I'm not just a hairdresser, I'm also a life coach. And so Sam came to me and he was like, hey, why don't you start a series where it's more coaching-based information to just help our community, with emotional and energetic and physical health. So one of the first people that I thought of that I would love to have a guest on our show is Lyn Christian. Everyone say hi, Lyn. Give
hi,
her
everyone.
A heart or a thumbs up or a hello. So here's what's so cool about Lyn. Lyn, honestly, and I'm not trying to butter you up, Lyn. Lyn has most likely been the most significant person in my life as far as just my evolution and my personal change, because Lyn has been a good friend of mine. She has been a mentor and she's been my coach since the early 2000s. So you are getting to meet a really super significant person, and I'm super stoked to have her because, as you'll see through our conversation, she's just a powerhouse. She's incredibly inspiring. She's compassionate. She's scarily intuitive sometimes. So Lyn, I'm going to turn it over to you for a second. Just give them a little introduction to who you are, and maybe just a little touch on what we're going to chat about today.
Right. Well, thank you, Andrew. And if we do go back, we go back quite a ways. And It's been a wonderful journey to be by your side, to be your peer sometimes, your mentor sometimes, your coach other times. So thank you. And it's an honor to be in front of this audience today.
Thank you.
I think I'm standing in front of you, and I think the reason that you selected me at one point, Andrew, is because I have paid attention as best as I can in my lifetime to what worked and what didn't. And I've had some extremely cathartic turning points in my life that when I did pay attention, I was able to find an inner sort of line of wisdom that guided me. And really, when I formed a business because I want to support the formidable, valiant, righteous pieces of individuals with that individual wanting that. It's not something I want to impose on anyone. It's not something I'd asked to impose. But when people are willing and they're truly open, I'm willing to be by their side. And the things that got me through some of the toughest moments of my life have sort of congealed over the years. And now that I've just entered my 60th decade of being here, I think I'm finally catching on to a few things. And life is always going to throw us some curveballs. And these things that I have captured and paid attention to are strategic guiding mileposts that people can apply. I'm never going to be somebody who says you should do this. I will not dictate to someone what is their truth. I will stand by your side all day long while you struggle with, wrestle, and distill what your truth is so that you can then live it. So those are the things that get me up in the morning, keep me going through the day, and I put a smile on my face at night if I've been able to do that with someone.
Yeah. Well, you've been able to do it with me for about 15 years now, so That's awesome. So what when we started to talk about what we wanted to share, of course, right, you have an incredible passion for our topic today. So share with him just what we wanted to try and share with him today, and what we kind of hope that that's going to support them in.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you a physical object. My father passed away just about a year and a half ago, and he was a carpenter. Excuse me, he was a carpenter. And what Andrew is showing you on the screen is a plumb line, but this is an actual plumb line. This was my father's plumb line. And I would watch him attach this to a rafter. He was in particular, he was building out our basement in a house that he had built for us. And he would hang this, and this line would give him directions on where to put the studs in the wall for the wall so that they were built on plumb, so that the wall would stand true over the test of time. And I was always fascinated because before my father, my grandfather would come down and help him. They were both carpenters. They came from this great Welsh and English stock of men who had worked in lumber and wood and carpentry. And so I would see them work side by side, and I would notice how when I was out pounding nails and boards together, I could never, like my playhouse kind of tilted a little bit. And I would dig post holes. We lived on a farm. We had 20 acres, and we would dig the post holes, and my dad would come out and measure them. And he was very strict about putting and planting the post holes straight on plumb again. So at an early age, I was aware of this sort of law of physics or engineering or whatever you want to think about it. Actually, the Egyptians are getting credit for creating the plumb bob. And later in life, when I had great experiences of, for instance, coming out of the closet, it was like I was trying to find this plumb line that would guide me to know what I should do, because it wasn't just coming out of a closet. I was actually feeling the threat of having my 3 children, I was a single parent at the time, taken away from me by speaking my truth. And having people that supposedly were family and friends and support fight against me and ridicule me and literally rip at me with their words. And so what we're talking about today is, and some of you probably felt this, so Andrew, if you'll show the picture again, the inside of each of us, I am going to compare that we have a dynamic that is like a plumb line. And some of you have felt it before because you felt like this golden line of truth that can start up at your crown chakra and run all the way through your body, right through your solar plexus, right through your heart line, and down to the root chakra. And the way that you probably are aware of it is it either lights up or it settles in, or you just know there's a yes for you or there's a no for you. And sometimes if you listen to your language is giving you the indication. In my heart of hearts, I don't think I could do that. You know what? I just threw down the hammer. I used my guts and my courage, and I did that thing that was hard. So what we're talking about is an inner knowing, an inner wisdom line. And Andrew, you know this, we both have been students of multiple brain integration. Now we're finding that science is catching up. And that there are neurons, there are, and you don't necessarily have to show that anymore, but I think people will get that. And I would love to hear from anyone listening in if this is making sense, from academics to corporate offices, from salon owners to architects to creative designers. There are people in the crowds who come out and go, I know what that is. I know what you're talking about, Lyn. I can feel that line of truth. So in our body, we have neural networks that are complex enough and highly evolved enough that now science is calling them functional brains. We have one in our heart, we have one in our gut system, and our gut system is pretty complex. It starts here at the back of our throat, goes all the way to our back door. Most of you know where that is. That gut system, or the enteric system, has about 500 million of these neural networks. The heart itself has about 40,000, and the head brain has about 86 billion. And I'm just going to pause right now because I want to put a plug in for women in science. It was a female neuroscientist from, I believe she was from Central America, who decided to take a brain, puree it, run it through a mechanism with a light that was like a counter that would pick up the neurons and count them. And that's how she was able to give us the estimate that we have 86 billion neurons in our head brain. So if you think about it, yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
When the head, heart, and gut are lined up, we have that plumb line, and we have our neural network telling us what our wisdom is. And so one of the reasons that you and I, Andrew, have studied multiple brain integration is if we access certain questions we access certain brains by using the neurolinguistics of a question that will activate the neurons in the heart or the gut or the head brain, we can literally feel this plumb line speaking to us. And so there are things that we know that we don't know how we know, but we know that we know what's right for us and what's not right for us. And the more self-efficacy we have in understanding what is our truth and what is not our truth, the stronger our wisdom becomes, and the more we can navigate our life with an inner knowing that surpasses understanding how we know what we know. I hope that's not a riddle all wound up in a bunch of neuroscientific terms. Tell me how we're doing, Andrew.
I think we're doing great. I'm kind of just looking through the comments here, and you're getting tons of kudos, and people are definitely on board with us so far. And just to kind of shout you all out, we've got, people from every corner of the United States. We've got Greece, we've got Canada, we have a very international crowd here already. We've got hair schools, tons of hairdressers. Oh, we got my friend Cindy, who's a hairdresser, yoga teacher, nutritional coach. We've got an awesome crowd here so far. We have
the world here. And
yes, we do.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for tuning in during this pandemic, because I know I have not been alive, and I've been alive 60 years. I've never seen a time when there is so much confusion, so many distractions, and so much fear honing in on us that this is really an excellent time to start exercising how to hear your truth so you can live it. And I want you guys to know, I've been a student of this. I've known all my life that there was something guiding me internally. I know it from an early age. So I'm going to ask the audience right now, think about this for a minute. When you were little or a teenager, or even maybe recently, think about a time when you have taken a stand for something. And I'm going to go way back to my childhood, where I came out of the bedroom wearing my brother's Levi's and a flannel shirt. And apparently my grandmother thought I was supposed to be in a dress to go to church or something. And I thought I looked like I was ready for church. And she was starting to scold me, like, you're a little girl and you can't wear those pants and you need to go get your dress on. And I turned to her on a dime. And here I am. I'm preschool. And this maternal grandmother was a woman that you don't want to mess with. Like,
I'm sure.
She had a flipper crutch, and she would shoot other people's critters that got in her yard and messed with her flower beds. She had a BB gun, and she would shoot your critter if it got. This lady, I grew up in a rural setting, as you can imagine, but she was known as the meanest lady in town.
Wow.
And so she was scolding me, and I turned on a dime and I said, I'm not a girl. And I just faced her down and just said, I'm wearing these Levi's. And my mother wrote something down in my baby journal. She said, your grandmother said that day that you would fight with a buzzsaw. And I look back on that and go, okay, I'm not a real, Andrew, you know me. Yes, yeah. There's a ferocity to some of the things that I do, but I'm not going out and trying to pick fights. What I was standing for, now this is what I'm going to ask all of you. If you've had an experience where you've stood for something and later on you went, oh my gosh, how did I do that? Because that was one of my oh my gosh moments. Like, I did that as a kid. I really did that as a kid. I was standing for some things. I was standing for courage. I was standing for my own freedom. So rather than get into the story, if you're in the audience right now and you're listening, write down on a piece of paper, what were you standing for?
Mm-hmm.
So there are things inside of us that are alive and vibrant. They are part of our aliveness that guide us. And here I am as a child, allowing them to guide me. So another thing let's talk about. Let's talk about at this moment with a world pandemic, there are people who probably are standing out to you as heroes. There are probably people that you would like to be more like. There are probably people you're starting to follow because there's something about that individual that you go, my people, that is my person right there. There's something about them that invokes almost a heart response or a guttural response where you go, I get them on some level. So again, if you want to write their names down, go ahead. What's more important is by the name, write the actual adjective or the character trait or the title you would give them. If you would say they're heroic or whatever it is, write those words that sort of describe this one or two people. Just take a moment and do that.
We're getting lots of comments, Lyn, too, just, to your first question, like, why did we stand for those things? And I like Bianca here said that because you feel it in your heart that you're doing the right thing. Yes. Love that.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Bianca. That's what we're talking about. You put words to exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. I used to have this kind of joke, because in the Mormon church, there's, the WWJD, what would Jesus do? And I had, my good friend, Dennis James, and I had Dennis, who was such a huge mentor to me. And I would kind of like, not to be disrespectful to the WWJD, but I would kind of have this WWDD.
Right. What
because
Dennis do?
Yeah, because he was such a huge mentor, and I had so much respect for his ability to stand so strong. And, I'm not going to say your name right, but Glorio Sela, he had this ability to stand so true to what he could feel in his gut, like just this gut instinct that this was truth, but he did it in the kindest, most gentle, non-judgmental way. It was such an incredible trait. And so, for me, I still kind of go back to that pretty often. Like, if I had those traits that I looked up to so strongly in Dennis, how would I react to this situation?
Yeah. So let's give that to everyone here. The words that you're writing down, either for what you took a stand for. So again, for me as a little child, I was standing for my courage to speak up to authority, freedom to wear, excuse my French, but whatever the hell I wanted to as a 4-year-old. And these people that you're noticing, like Fauci, Dr. Fauci right now, really has my attention. I'm really drawn to his integrity and the way he's dancing this really precarious dance on a tightrope of giving us science and trying to keep some peace around him as he discusses that, working on diplomacy. So with these words in front of you, now Andrew, why don't you show us the magnet? So you probably have all played with magnets. And you probably know some things about magnets, like they have a north and a south pole. And the north and the south pole, if we were to lay out a bar magnet, as you see here, and stand above it and drop some iron filings on it, would create this pattern of attraction toward the magnet. So in this last exercise, we kind of did this. A magnet is made out of pure iron, some cobalt, maybe some nickel, and then it's charged. It's usually heated up to this incredible heat. And then what happens is, whenever it comes in contact with something that has pure iron in it, in this case, iron filings, they are drawn to it. And we create this pattern. And it almost works like the law of attraction, but it's visible. So the words that everybody wrote today, what you wrote down for what you were standing for, and what you wrote down as these words that attract you to these modern day heroes, are actually your iron filings, and you're the magnet. So take that in for just a minute. We don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. So every word that you wrote down, from what compelled you to take a stand to those wonderful attributes that you saw in somebody else, those actually belong to you in some measure. And they're starting to indicate what Andrew and I are talking about, and what I talk about at my company named SoulSalt, SoulSalt.com. SoulSalt, which is another story because I did not name my company. My clients named my company. And we're getting to the salt of the soul. These pieces of you that you wrote down today are part of what I call a be true system, like an inner compass or an inner plumb line, that when we live our lives according to these things, we are in flow. We always stand in our integrity, as you said, Andrew, Dennis James moments, where no matter what was happening, he could just speak his truth. And we have a lot of people say to us, just be true to yourself. But very few times do they stop and show us, what do you mean by be true to yourself? And that's what I'm hoping to share with you today, is to start to give you some of the strategies and the tools for you to be capable. You're already capable, but to be consciously capable and competent about how to live according to this. And we've just scratched the surface. Like, we've absolutely just scratched the surface of what's possible, because this whole process is so private and personal. And actually, in my world, extremely sacred. It's not dependent upon a religion. It's not dependent upon a family code or even the country that you live in. It's dependent upon what's important to you. What did you bring in as a human soul? And what have you made sense of over your life that shows you what you truly, truly value? And so, Andrew, I'm giving you a snatch of it so you can live today, everyone that's listening, a beginning of, oh, those words that I just identified, here's your challenge. Choose one and go out and make sure that most of your behaviors for a 24-hour period align, are in perfect alignment. Again, back to the plumb line. They're on plumb. There's a perfect line between what you say you value the most and what you do. But because it is such a sacred and personal, and one of those times where you kind of want to take an hour or two and go into a personal retreat to distill these down, I think let's make an offer for your audience here.
Yeah.
Because what I've done is taken this technology and put it into an online workshop where, if you are willing to spend a half hour to an hour and a half, and everybody's process is different, so I'm not going to tell you how long it should take. But I do have this online workshop where I promise you, after you work through it, you will have your beginning version of your Be True system. You'll know how to stay true to yourself, and you'll be able to engage flow and stand in your integrity in any time that you want to. And here's the other promise I will tell you. I excavated mine back in 1998, and it has been, I've been living it all my life, and that's what you'll find, is you've been living this all your life, but consciously knowing what it is so that you could add finesse and be stealthy about it and add greater strength to your integrity, personal integrity. You'll want to play with it. Sometimes the words that you use or the actions that you use will refine it so you become more aware. For instance, one of my very first iterations of my Be True system said that openness and honesty, a hyphenated word, was really important to me. And after living that for a year, that mobilized itself and transformed into integrity. So I don't know if you have that way for people to take the workshop, but I'd love to give that offer
Yeah.
to your group.
And I think you're offering them a special pricing, right, Lyn?
Yes, I would love to give you, if you're part of Andrew's team here, if you're listening today, make it easy for you to get into the workshop. So there's a discount code.
Yeah. Cool. So guys, I will make sure that I put into the description of the video the links and the discount code and how you can connect with Lyn for this. But, especially right now with the fact that so many of us are away from our salons or away from our businesses, we really feel like this where we have an opportunity. The opportunity, I think it's hard to grasp the idea that during a tough time like this, that we can see opportunity, but that's our option. We can either see it as a condemnation to having to be home and ourselves, or we can see it as, okay, well, my choice right now is to continue to grow myself.
Right.
And so something like this, that it's a self-guided practice that you can take on your own time. And I forget, I think it's only around like $50 or $60 that you're offering this for them. It's huge. So again, I'll make sure that those links and everything it's in the video description after we finish up here, so you guys can come back to it.
Yeah, and here's what I want to encourage people, because I've had people ask, "Does this really work, Lyn? Does this really work?" Thanks, Jeffrey.
It's Jeff Adams, my good buddy.
Yeah, Jeff. I'm going to share this story. This is just one of many. Mm-hmm. Hanging in the lobby of its corporate headquarters is this huge sign. What was this huge sign that stated, "Helping people on their path to better health"? And this company was CVS Caremark. Hmm. And this story started in February of 2014. So imagine in their corporate offices, they're saying, helping people on their path to better health. But as they would have these board meetings, people would sometimes say, well, but you guys sell cigarettes. How can you be on the path to better health if you sell cigarettes? Now, I'm not saying yes or no to the cigarette thing. I'm simply saying CVS listened to that, and they realized that they had hung a plumb line and their behaviors were askew. So they had pieces of their business that were actually off target from what they said was most important. So in that same year, February 2014, they stopped selling any tobacco-related products in over 200 or 2,800 stores. That meant that there was $2 billion a year of lost revenue. And this guy named Jim Cramer, a Wall Street pundit, basically said, it might make money in Oz, but this isn't going to make money in the real world. What are you guys doing? And indeed, CVS did see that there was a drop in their stock, but they stuck to it. And after a while, even though their stock fell 1% the day that they stopped selling cigarettes and they announced it, it went from $66.11 to $65.44 per share. Okay. But the stock, after a year and a half, had shot up to $113.65 a share.
Cool.
Now, you might think that other companies around them who were selling cigarettes would actually get the money, but they did some studies and found out that CVS, because of their effort, because they were staying true to their inner plumb line, they actually decreased the number of smokers in their communities. Wow. That the people who stopped smoking because of CVS didn't go somewhere else to get their cigarettes. They actually took that as a message and stopped smoking. Again, this story is not about if you smoke or not. This is a story about giving you a very blatant example of people who had a lot to lose financially, and they stayed that line. And in the end, it turned out for the better. And that is something I want to talk to you guys about. Once you know these core values, it's not always easy to live them. my hardest time was as a parent of a little 6-year-old who inadvertently destroyed a piece of property of our neighbors. It was a little bush, and this guy was a master gardener, and he has his name spelled out in his garden, front garden, with these little bushes.
That's serious.
Yeah. I mean, this is a master gardener. He literally is in charge of one of the major tourist attraction gardens in Salt Lake. In fact, it's the garden around the Mormon temple. And his name was written out on his home in these bushes. And we were going around delivering these little papers because I had this work ethic with my kids that we were going to learn. They were going to learn the value of, once a week we would hold hands and go deliver for an hour, and then they would get, dimes and nickels and dollars to spend somewhere. And she was fascinated what would happen if she put her foot on the M, if she could stand on the M, because that's what her first name began with. So she put her foot on it, and it sunk in, and it destroyed the bush. And I just couldn't handle it in the moment. I was like, I do not know what to do. I was about ready to cry. Here I am, a poor school teacher mom with 3 kids. We're out trying to get some nickels and dimes for them for their allowance. And now I can't even fathom how much it would cost to replace the M. So I needed about an hour with them finishing their route. And then I sat her down at home and I said, we need to go tell him what happened, and I'll be right by you. And if we need to pay for it, we'll pay for it together. And so we walked over together, this little child and I, both shivering in our boots. And we knocked on the door and we went inside, and she was crying and I was crying, and we told him what had happened. And he was crying because this bush meant so much to him. Oh. And it was the first time I could see a man struggle with wanting to be compassionate and being so destroyed himself that one of his prized plants has been injured and is going to die. So we had this moment, and in that moment, we taught her honesty. And you can see that what I wanted to do was stay in alignment with my core value and teach my child about core values herself, because at some point I knew she was going to have to determine what hers were. That was one of the hardest times in my life of living in alignment with these values. So they show up in easy times, they show up in really, really hard times. Mm-hmm. And what I would love is, if you find them, I would love for the audience to reach out and let me know some of your stories of alignment. Sometimes it's joyful. I mean, it's really, really joyful to say, oh, I know what to do, because you have this plumb line and you do it and you go, that's why it feels so good to do this.
Yeah. And, I think something that's good to kind of recognize too, Lyn, is that the motivation for humans is to have our needs met. And if you follow the teachings of the Buddha, he kind of told us that there is only one kind of motivation, which is the escape of suffering, or the pursuit of peace and happiness.
Right.
But each of us also has these kind of unique human needs that we want to have fulfilled. And so sometimes our actions, they're purely based in trying to fulfill those needs or escape suffering, but maybe they're not in congruence with our core values. So, in that moment, I'm sure there was some need for self-protection. And, that self-protection could, if you're not in touch with the sense of core values, that sense of self-protection could lead you to that place of, okay, we're just going to ignore this thing because I don't want to address it because I have a need of self-protection. But when you come back to the core values, and I know one of yours is integrity, then when you place that into the needs and how you're going to react to that need, that guides us in a different direction with the actions we take, right?
Right. You're hitting on something so true, Andrew. Don't think for a minute that I wasn't tempted to not say anything.
Sure.
It was nighttime. No one was around. This was before people had cameras in their yards.
Yeah.
We could have got away with it. There
Sure.
was something inside of me that said I would never be able to feel completely good about that. And so, in a way, the Be True system, the core values, give you a means for allowing yourself to be sharpened and honed and polished through the hard times. But if you look at endurance, if you look at the word endurance, ENDURANCE, how we say it in the English language, I've always felt like that should start with an IN. For me, endurance has always been having these things that are most true and alive in me, functioning during. Because Andrew, just the very week, like I had just let my team stay at home. When they came in for a Monday meeting, and I was like, "This is your last day at work for I don't know how long, guys. We're going to keep working. We're going to do it remote. You're not fired. I still am going to pay you. However, we need to work from home to be safe."
Mm-hmm.
That Wednesday at 7:10 in the morning, I'm dressed. I'm coming out of the room, ready to go do my workout. And our house starts to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I scream for my partner, "Let's get out." We are in an old 1916 brick farmhouse. And I said, "It's an earthquake, get out." We got out, the power lines were arcing, the trees were swaying, glass was breaking in our house as things were falling. And we experienced a 5.6 earthquake. Thank goodness that only a few things were broken in the house and we got out safe. But right after that was a 4.6. That entire day, we were shaken, and we kept feeling aftershock, aftershock, aftershock. In fact, I came in and I had a class I was supposed to be a part of. I could hardly attend to it. I mean, thank goodness I was the student. If it had been my class, I would have canceled it if I had to teach it.
Sure.
By the afternoon, I brought myself together. I was coaching another client remotely. She was in Denver, and our house started to shake again, another 4.6, and I had to duck and run. I came back and saw how white my face was. And I just said, one of my core values is courage. I have to have the courage and the integrity to say, "I'm going to comp you this. Let's see if we can talk another time this week. I'm not in a place to be better at supporting you or to be at my best to support you." That was hard. I don't think if I hadn't seen how white my face was, I may have tried to plow through that.
Sure.
And that would have put us against the core values. So I'm sharing these things in an effort to be fully transparent of some of the hard times and the realities that we hit, where when push comes to shove, we want to make a decision and we want it to be right. And none of us have a crystal ball.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us want to say, what will the future look like? If I can predict the future, then I know how to decide and function right now. We can't see that. We don't know what's around the corner. We don't know how many more viruses. We don't know how many more confusing moments we're going to have in the future. This is a way to have that solidarity with self, to know how to behave moment to moment, to stay in your integrity, even if you're shaking in your boots, and find a way to be in there with yourself to endure through it.
Absolutely. Yeah, my friend Sean, he actually brought this up the other day. One of his teachers was talking about the fact that we're all looking for something solid to stand on.
Right.
And I immediately thought of you. I thought of all of my friends in Salt Lake City because, like, we talk about the earth being such a foundation and something strong to stand on top of. And that day, even something as significant and typically secure as the ground underneath our feet was literally kind of taken out from underneath you.
It was.
And so now it's like, okay, well, what is that thing that can always be secure? And it's actually the unseen. It's spiritual connection. It's connection to our core values, connection to who we are as human beings. That's the stuff that can't be shaken. And we kind of see that throughout history. Like, Nelson Mandela came up the other day because I've been listening to the Dolly Parton's America podcast.
Right.
And, I think about people like that. The only way that people survive the experiences like that is to come back to true self. Now, and if you don't know what that is, this is a great opportunity to start searching for it, to start finding it.
I agree, Andrew. And you said something on one of your most recent Journeys of Sunday. It was episode 8. So those of you who are listening, if you're not part of that, you got to get on Instagram and listen to Andrew on Sundays. And before I get to your exact quote, I want to share this. Courage is one of my guiding principles. It's part of my Be True system. The day of the earthquake and after, I had to be patient with myself and redefine what courage was, because we're a stay in place, and yet the place where we're staying could fall in on us. So yes, you're right. It was destabilizing, discombobulating, and yet I knew that I would find my courage to be able to accept. It took a few days, but to accept, okay, we're on unsolid ground here. Best I can do is stay safe from the virus, do my work, love my family, and always know where's that corner I'm going to run to if I have to. I mean, that's how basic and survival based it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was happening was beliefs can be shaken up and you can lose the harmony within your own life. And what we're talking about today is a way to get that harmony back. What struck me so much about your episode 8 was you were talking about expanding our beliefs beyond our own belief system. I actually had a vision one time. My imagination came up with something. Call it imagination, call it a vision. I get these intuitively every once in a while. And I saw the future world as each person is its own circle. And then as one circle joins another circle, there's that Venn diagram in between. And then another person joins. So you never lose the individuality of that belief system, of that one individual, but they can find commonalities with each other in the intersecting parts and find harmony in some place. And I could see the entire globe at some time. And I'm so glad that we have a global audience. This is what I believe for us. We can keep our individual belief systems and values and find a way to have mutual success with each other. And you said this, and it struck me. Can we expand our belief system beyond our own? You don't think, and you said you don't have to have a right and wrong belief system. I think that's the where we get into a problem of thinking that there's right and wrong. What's your reality, Andrew? What's my reality? And where can we find shared success in the reality? What's your reality about what you value and what you believe and mine? And where can we find that harmony? And so you were asking us to look into our beliefs, our viewpoints, not just an intellectual, but a deeper, heartfelt, soul-like level, and find out what we really believe in, and then ask us to expand. We don't have to give up our beliefs. Maybe we educate them and they become a little wiser, but then start to see how we can harmonize around joining one belief system to another, a value system to another. If we did this, we would co-create a world that would find the answers to the problems, the solutions when we need them, and give us a peace that is unprecedented upon this planet. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm. I believe it too. I take a martial art called Aikido, and Aikido is a martial art built around the principle of harmony. And we do this exercise. It's called No Hanko. And basically, let's see if I can get to a point you guys can see me. So basically, you have someone across from you, and they grab a hold of your wrist. And the first thing that you do is you actually turn so that you're facing the same direction as this person that is supposedly your opponent. And Sensei tells us, you're looking to see what they're trying to see. So instead of, okay, you grabbed my wrist, so I'm going to punch you back in the face to react to this. No, my first step is actually, I'm going to put myself first in a safe position, and I'm going to try and see what's the vision you're seeing. So we take this complete 180-degree turn, which is actually the safest place because now we're next to them, which is much harder for them to continue to harm us next to them. And we're looking in the direction that this other person's looking with the goal of, well, what's their perception? What are they seeing right now? Now, man, if we could take that position, you're so right. I mean, guys, just think about what that could create. And maybe it's a little overwhelming to think that we're going to have this ability to the entire world. But you have the ability to make these shifts for yourself. Something as simple as just finding your own core values and trying to be more adherent to them is a shift in how you are interacting with your world. And if you don't believe that little tiny shifts can make a difference, look at the situation we are in. One molecule on this planet decided to change, and it caused all of this. So we have to believe that we could make little shifts that can make a ripple effect, because it is scientifically true. This isn't woo-woo fairy dust kind of stuff. Just a simple shift in an electronic signal, which is mutation of a gene or mutation of a cell, caused all of this. So we have to believe that we have that same ability in the other direction.
Andrew, you're so right. And I like the martial art. I'm getting into the martial arts myself.
Mm-hmm.
I love the metaphor that you use, because we're using that momentum and that point of view, and we're doing no harm. And also the fact that we can make a difference. One person at a time. It was Gandhi who said, be the shift that you want. Mm-hmm. One change in one human being will change, will go have a ripple effect. Everything you said, exclamation marks, yes, yes, yes.
Awesome. So I know we're going to offer them the opportunity to jump in on your web class. What else could we offer them, just as kind of like some simple practical things that they could be doing throughout this time that they have to just connect deeper to this?
So one of the things they could do is to just take one of those words, like mentioned earlier, that you got. What are your?
And actually, sorry, I'm going to jump in real quick, Lyn.
Yeah.
Because I know that we have quite a few people that just joined us recently, and so just can you give them like a quick 60-second? This is what we talked about to set them up on this.
Yeah. So quickly, science is quickly showing to us things that esoteric practices have long believed. And many of you coming on, you know that you sort of have this inner guiding plumb line. Sometimes it's a gold line of truth that sort of runs from your crown chakra all the way down to your root chakra. And you know when there's a yes and a no, you know when you've messed up. Yes, kind of like a plumb line, inner plumb line. And we talked quickly that it runs through the neurons. And I've talked to Suzanne Henwood, and I talked to Grant Suzalu before he passed away about how close science is to showing us that when these neurons in our head, heart, and gut fire, we have this plumb line. So in a nutshell, you can be guided by an inner wisdom, know your truth so you can live it, if you listen to the intimations of the head, heart, and gut. And so back to your original question, I have a TEDx talk. My TEDx talk is exactly about this topic of head, heart, and gut wisdom, and that we can listen, we can listen to our heart, follow our gut, use the insights of our head brain. During this time, take one of the words that we did in the exercise. If you missed it, go back and listen and just live one of those words. Just be that word, embody it. Have your actions match up, your words match up, your inner intentions match up, your outcomes will match up. And see what that's like for an experiment. Just try it on and see what happens for you. Another thing too, Andrew, which is really interesting in our timing to talk, neither of us knew this was going to happen, but it has been happening, is we're opening up, Marco Polo reached out to me and asked if I would be a test for them. And they're creating small channels. And so I think you have the link to that. But I'm going to be making my coaching bite-sized and virtual with a tiny, 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 tiny price tag. I mean, under $10, probably under $6 per month, to work with me once a week on one of these kind of projects of being true and being strong and being focused, being a formidable, valiant, righteous, according to your own definition of what that means, individual during these extraordinary times. And so that's another thing that people can be doing. I have a number of blogs. So at my website, once again, I may have mentioned earlier, I couldn't name my company. And so after working for a few years, I asked people who had worked with me what they would name the company. And they said, oh, you help us find the salt of our soul. And so I just transposed that and called the company SoulSalt. So you can follow us. We have a lot of blogs. I do Facebook Lives, probably start doing Instagram Lives soon. We have a SoulSalt channel. It's called SoulSalt Coaching, all one word, on YouTube that you're welcome to follow. So there are some things that you can fill your time with. But I would say, here's my plea with you during this time. Use this as one of those times to go into the incubator of your own soul and your own life and get stronger and more true. Because when the world opens up, and it will, when we have doors and windows start to open up for us to walk through, it will be a changed environment. Mm-hmm. And we will need the badass inside of every one of you to walk through that and be ready to co-create a better future. So use this incubation time to get stronger, faster, leaner, more focused, more true.
Love that. Well, you've had, like I said, just a huge audience here today. We've got California, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, pretty much every corner of the United States is represented in here, plus tons of different places over the world, Spain, Greece. Yeah, we've had quite the audience here. So guys, if you don't mind, please share some love. Show some love to Lyn. Give her a thumbs up. Give her a thank you or something in the comments. Really appreciate it. Like I said, I will make sure that as soon as we close up here, my first order of business will be to make sure that all the information that Lyn shared with you, including the links she was talking about, all of that will go into the description, both on the YouTube and Facebook channel in this particular video, so that you have the ability to connect with Lyn, as well as her social media handles, so that you can find her.
Thank you. And I encourage everyone else. And another thing is, if you haven't watched The Journey of Sunday with Andrew, I watch it. It's a ritual of my week. Please join that. Yeah.
And you can find that on my personal Instagram, or actually my personal YouTube channel too. It goes on there. So thanks for plugging that. I appreciate that.
Right. And your audience, I know it's a varied audience, but if there's anyone out there, someone that's near and dear to both of our hearts, Andrew, if anyone out there has a chance to see Sam Villa before I see him, because some of you know him, give him a hug for me when it's time, when you can, because you'll probably see him before I will. And he is just a giant, and his whole heart is about helping people learn and grow. So I'm just going to send a hug to you, Sam, out there somewhere, through someone who's listening to this, because yeah.
Well, thank you again, Lyn, and thank you all for joining us for Cabin Fever. If you want, you can join us again just in about an hour. The entire art team, meaning Sam, Jesse Linares, Anna Peters, and me, we're going to jump back onto our Facebook and YouTube channel live for a live Q&A. So this will be more hairdresser focused. We'll have some mannequin heads around, and we can definitely answer whatever questions you have on technical, salon life, anything like that. But that will be at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So come back and hang out with us then. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Lyn.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Talk to you soon.